I was having y'all show about Rico from RicoScores, and we're coming with a Rico report today because we have so many different things to talk about. Man, we have so many different things to talk about. I couldn't even fit it all in the title. You know, the titles have like a limited character count. I couldn't even fit all of it in the title. So make sure you buckle up for this one. The Washington Commanders hired another elite scout. We're going to dive into why he's arguably one of our most important scouts, most notably because of the region that he's responsible for. Also, the Washington Commanders are fighting real hard to host a NFL draft as soon as 2027. Also, Pro Football Focus has listed some of the most notable Washington players, the most underrated, the breakout candidate, and the comeback candidate. So we're going to dive into those. The answers will probably surprise you, especially for the most underrated one. And then also Jayden Daniels has some surprising quarterback rankings. We're going to really dive into that because his actual quarterback ranking and his fantasy quarterback ranking are like two completely different rankings. We're going to dive into all of that and again, way more. We have a few more topics even after all of that, but before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Make sure you stay tuned because I'm gonna keep y'all updated on any OTA practice that the Commanders have, that the media have access to, where we know anything that happens, we get any clips from it, any highlights. I got y'all every time. So anytime that I don't come out with that, just know that the Washington Commanders are not allowing anybody outside of the organization to see and know about what's going on. Also, I am cooking up these film sessions for these draft prospects, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you follow all of the social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the TikTok, all of that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, yesterday was Adam Peters' birthday, and I really wanted to get a video out yesterday for y'all on his birthday so I can make sure I tell him happy birthday in the video and everything like that, but it's just been super busy around here. It's going to be busy really throughout this whole weekend, but you know, I'm going to get around. I'm going to make sure I get these videos out. I'm at least trying to do at least one video a day for y'all. But either way, yesterday was Adam Peters' birthday. I'm hoping that the GMs around the NFL send them some of their first round draft picks for gifts. I mean, show them that who's the real friend. If you're a true friend, that's the type of stuff you would do for our boy Adam Peters, who's the up and coming. I mean, he's the next guy. I think Adam Peters has the potential to, within like 5 years, be arguably the best GM in the NFL, and I feel like most people would acknowledge him as such. And the scary thing is, Brandon Sosna, the guy that we just hired to our organization, to our front office, to be like, I mean, he's controlling so many things, but the main thing is that he's going to be like our contract guy. But I mean, he has his hand, and he's gonna have his hand in like personnel decisions, roster construction, all everywhere that you can think. But like, his main superpower is contract negotiation and contract structure, contract finessing and things like that. And I'm scared that eventually, I mean, he's such a like upcoming prodigy type of guy. He's literally like the front office version of like Sean McVay. He's only 31 years old and he's been everywhere. He's the one that literally got Lincoln Riley to go to USC. Like, he's that type of behind the scenes magician. So my main point is that I feel like he's gonna probably end up leaving to go become one of the elite GMs in the NFL, so we need to enjoy him as long as we have him. But either way, we have Adam Peters, we have Brandon Sosna, we also have a lot of top guys in the organization. And so now let's dive into what Adam Peters was doing on his birthday yesterday. And he went and hired another big name scout. He never sleeps, he never rests. Birthday, I mean, really, that was his own birthday present to himself. Let's go get Dustin Regan, who spent the last 7 years heading BLESTO, one of the 2 subscriber scouting services for NFL teams. Like, they're basically the NFL mercenaries, who the arms for hire. If an NFL team needs any scouting information, any scouting done, and they don't have it in their own department, they contact BLESTO. And just to let you know, he stepped down as the executive director there as well. So this is like the top guy at BLESTO. He'll take a job as an area scout for the Washington Commanders covering the Southeast region. Regan previously interned with the Eagles in the 2011 season as well. So that was a long time ago, 13 years ago. Since then, he's been getting to work. And it's just crazy how far and wide these guys are looking for as far as bringing in talent for the front office and the coaching staff, but most notably the front office. I mean, even just fairly recently, Dave Gardy was one of Roger Goodell's right-hand men at the NFL league office. Again, I keep telling y'all, a lot of these people that work for NFL franchises, their ultimate goal is to work for the NFL league office. The longevity there is just unmatched. And for him to leave that, the dream job that most people have to come work for us, says everything that you need to know. And it also says what type of credentials that he has, that everybody's fighting for those jobs, and he was the one that had it for so long. Then you also have Brandon Sosner, who I already told you about, just came from the Lions and USC previously. And then you have David Blackburn, who just came from the Ravens. And that's just to name a few. Like, we're bringing in elite guys from elite programs all over the place. If you do a great job at what you do, we're going to find you. We're going to bring you in. I love that. It just feels like this organization is leaving no stone left unturned, and that just has me very optimistic and excited about the future, because I feel like they're going to do everything that it could possibly take to make sure that we are as prepared as possible to be Super Bowl contenders. I mean, we're doing it from top to bottom. It's not just the players we draft. It's not just the free agents we sign. It's the contract guy. It's the area scouts. It's the my boy Tim McGrath over there with the player wellness and rehabilitation and things like that. We got like the elite guy at that. The guy that literally does that. Like, he's been in several different countries, several different continents, several different professional sports doing just that. I mean, everywhere. Eugene Shin is one of the top analytics guys out of the entire NFL. We brought him in to do just that. It's phenomenal, man. But also, I feel like the guy that's in charge of the Southeast region is probably our most important scout, because of just the talent there alone. And it's not even just like a physical, natural talent thing, which I would also probably argue, not gonna lie, but it's also because football is everything down here. I mean, if you've never been down here for real, especially during like a football season, like in the fall or something like that, I mean, it's different. In other parts of the country, I guess y'all be caring about other sports way too much, or other things in life, just even outside of sports. Like, y'all care about basketball, soccer, hockey, baseball, and all of that. Football is life down here. It's first and foremost, and there's nothing really even else close to it. Like, homecomings literally revolve around the football team, even when the basketball teams are really good and the football teams are trash. It's literally just like a culture thing. Like, we got the battle of the bands with the marching bands and the drum majors. I mean, Southern culture literally revolves around football entirely. Like, Friday night isn't even a question, like, where folks gonna be at, especially in the smaller towns. I mean, I'm in Atlanta and it's like that. I can only imagine the towns where Friday night is the night of the entire week. Nothing, I mean, that's the highlight of the whole entire week and things like that. So you have all of those factors, plus a lot more that I'm not even gonna dive into, as to why like the top talent pools in the country are in the South. I mean, we can look at it. You don't even have to take my word for it. Statistically, looking at this graph right here, Texas is number 1, then you have Florida number 2, California number 3, and then you have Georgia with ridiculously smaller populations than the previous 3 at number 4. Just to give you an idea. So, and when it comes to NFL player per capita, per person, Georgia's number 1 by far, Louisiana's 2nd, and Alabama's 3rd. This is what the South does. I mean, shouts out to California, shouts out to Ohio, shouts out to Pennsylvania and things like that. You even have North Carolina right there. Which is kind of almost like at the edge of the South in a way. So it's just different, man. This region of the country lives and breathes football. It's just plain and simple. Then you also have like IMG Academy, that they almost run like a college program where people come from different parts of the country to go play football for that high school, and their campus is even better than most college campuses. Like Ellis Robinson, I believe he's from Connecticut or New Jersey or something like that, the number 1 corner in the entire country coming out of high school. He was from one of those places somewhere in the Northeast region, and then he went to high school at least for 2 years minimum at IMG Academy, just because he knew he wanted to do football, and that's where people go a lot of the time to do that. And it's just a whole different thing, man. Yeah, a lot of other people are worried about different aspects of life, different sports. South is football. And again, I'm giving y'all all of this information to really just prove the point that our Southeast region area scout is probably going to be the most important. At the very least, he's going to be very important. I know that, especially since the Washington Commanders aren't based in the Southeast region. Like, maybe it would be different if like the Washington Commanders actually played somewhere in the South, maybe like Atlanta or whatever. But we're really about to depend on this recently hired scout in Dustin Regan for a lot of our most important scouting that's going to get done for this entire organization. And then shouts out to Hogs Haven, Bobby Gold to be specific, for the nice background information on what BLESTO is. Again, this guy was the executive over there at BLESTO. BLESTO is one of the top 2 subscription scouting services in the country. The other is national. The firm was originally started by Jack Butler in 1963 and gets his name from the teams that it was created to serve: the Bears, Lions, Eagles, and Steelers. That's where the BLESTO acronym actually comes from. That's really interesting. The Bears, Lions, Eagles, and Steelers Talent Organization. That's really crazy. That's interesting. Over time, BLESTO grew to serve roughly half of the NFL teams, with National serving most of the rest. So that's interesting. BLESTO is like hired by half of the NFL. National has almost the other half. That's pretty interesting how they compete against each other like that. And unlike the team scouts, most of which spend the fall looking at the upcoming draft class, the BLESTO scouts have traditionally spent most of their effort looking at the following year's classes. So generally juniors and sophomores, in order to get a jump start. I love that. So we're bringing in another guy that's specializes in something very specific that most other teams don't necessarily have access to, that most other teams don't necessarily think about when they're hiring a scout. Like, let's bring in a guy that not only is going to be in charge of the Southeast region, but let's also bring in a guy that's going to be paying attention to juniors and sophomores, so we can already be starting that scouting ahead of time. I mean, that's just a really random superpower to have. Again, I just feel like everybody in this coaching staff and front office brings a certain superpower, and that is Dustin's right there. It's almost a decade old at this point, but Cat Scratch Reader, the Panthers SB Nation site, had a good write-up on BLESTO on their site here. They said membership responsibilities include over $100,000 in annual dues and the assignment of at least one scout to the group. As scouts evaluate the current class of seniors visiting schools pro days, they often work out underclassmen for future drafts as well. This data and other information is presented at meetings, usually in Florida, the South, and about 2 weeks after the current draft. The BLESTO and national reports are published from these meetings. These reports serve as both starting point for the lengthy evaluation process and also a rough guide as to where players are regarded by the group. Some teams assign their most junior scout to the job of BLESTO National Regional Rep, and the best ones are usually promoted and headhunted away from the role in short stints. This instability with the reps and the lack of evaluating the senior season can and will affect the accuracy of the reports, though. And then continuing on after that, going back to Hogs Haven, regarding Regan, it's hard to know exactly what his scouting prowess is, but I think we can be confident that he's been exposed to a number of talented scouts who've made their way through the BLESTO pipeline, and that he could end up being a great source of intelligence on the scouting community for Peters and company. I think we killed it with this hire. Again, Hogs Haven brings up a great point that we don't exactly know what to literally give him credit for. Which exact players was he right on before everybody else, or which ones he may have been wrong on, things like that. But just based off of where he comes from, the organization that he worked with, I'm very excited about this hire. But of course, only time will tell, especially when it comes to scouts. Like, maybe they did a good job with a previous team. They could easily just come here and not do as well of a job. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm very excited about this hire, man. I'm telling you, that boy Dustin, that Southeast region, hey man, we gonna need you to come in clutch, man, because that's where the talent really is in this country right now, man. At least it's the easiest route to finding talent. I mean, of course, you're gonna have the #1 player in high school recruiting classes come from all over the place every now and then. A lot of 5-stars come from everywhere now and then, but at the end of the day, most of the talent is usually coming from the South. I mean, a lot of people forget that Travis Hunter is literally from Gwinnett. I mean, this is just how it goes, man. And then also moving on, DC officials and the Commanders are vying to host an NFL draft in Washington, possibly as soon as 2027. And hey, man, we should be drafting 32nd overall by then, right? You know what I'm saying? But going to the Washington Post article by Nikki Javala and Mark Mask, they said, and it's a really long article. I'm only going to read about maybe 1/5 of it. I just want to give y'all the main details so you can know exactly what's going on. So DC representatives and the Washington Commanders officials are vying for the district to host a future NFL draft, and are optimistic that the nation's capital will be chosen as the stage to for the event as soon as 2027, according to 4 people familiar with the deliberation. So that's cool. So people that actually know what's going on behind the scenes, they said that they're optimistic that not only that we will get a draft, but we may even get one as soon as 2027. That's big news for us to find out that the Commanders were even really fighting for this at the same time that we're finding out that we're optimistic that it can really happen sooner than what most people think. Hey, that's a lot to take in at the same time, man. I'm really excited. Also, but while several of those connected to the DC effort and confident that Washington will be selected as the site of an NFL draft in the coming years, others within the league caution that the competition is intense, as many cities with the NFL franchises aspire to be picked to host the popular and increasingly lucrative event. Very lucrative. I know Detroit was having a blast last year. The Commanders were among 12 teams with representatives in Detroit at this year's draft to conduct site surveys, according to a person with knowledge on the matter. So shouts out to the Commanders for being one of the 12 proactive teams that went there to the draft in Detroit and was like, all right, how did they do it? How productive is this? How did they go about this? What can we do to make it better? All of that type of stuff. What did Detroit do behind the scenes to get the opportunity to host the draft? Shouts out to the Commanders being one of those 12 teams. Continuing with the article, the 2027 draft is the next one available because Green Bay is scheduled to host the 2025 draft. The league announced Wednesday that Pittsburgh has been chosen to host the event in 2026. Stop letting these cold cities get it. I mean, I know DC isn't necessarily the warmest place in February, but Pittsburgh and Green Bay, can we chill out, man? Can we have these in better weather places? I may think about going if it's in a better weather location. Continuing on with the article, it's not clear when the league will award the 2027 draft. Team owners meet on a quarterly basis, but the selection process could last until next May if the NFL follows the timetable by which it just awarded the 2026 draft to the Pittsburgh Steelers, again just back on Wednesday. The details of Washington's effort are not known, including whether the city would stage the event on the National Mall, which is administered by the National Park Service. A delegation from the NFL visited DC last fall to assess the area's potential for hosting an NFL draft. Multiple people with knowledge of the visit said. So that's interesting. The NFL is already sending out like their own scout to kind of peep the area and see, yo, would it be a good idea to host a draft here or not, or something like that? And we haven't exactly gotten the results from that back yet, but hey, I just think it's interesting that the NFL is even sending somebody out to go look. There must be some serious mutual interest there, or at the very least the NFL is listening to the Commanders. The Commanders are yelling, yo, let us hire it as soon as 2027, or at the very least sometime soon after that, maybe 2028, 29 or whatever. And then the fact that the NFL has heard that and has even sent the guy out to DC to see what's going on, like, this is what y'all doing, this is cool, like, how's y'all traffic, all of that type of stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm glad that we're getting something started here. We're getting the ball rolling there. Nothing's definitive yet, but again, people close to the situation are optimistic that the Commanders may get the 2027 one, maybe the next team announced. So that's pretty cool. Now moving on, Pro Football Focus has some interesting players that they mentioned from the Commanders as far as different categories go. Like, the most underrated player for every NFC East team was very interesting. For the Cowboys, it's Sam Williams, the interior defensive lineman. For the Giants, it's Bobby Okereke, the linebacker. For the Eagles, it's another interior defensive lineman, Milton Williams. And then for the Washington Commanders, guess who it is, man? I mean, just give a wild guess who they feel like is our most underrated player. And I'm very sure that all of y'all are watching this video that if you don't already know, you got it wrong. They said for some crazy reason, Andrew Wiley is our most underrated player. I'm very shocked. Now, granted, I want to go ahead and acknowledge the fact before I even read what they have to say. I haven't even read what their explanation is for this yet. So y'all are going to get my live reaction as to what their reasoning is behind this selection out of the entire team. Most underrated player, Andrew Wiley's crazy. But I do want to preface with the fact that he did look way better the second half of last season than he looked the first half of last season. Now, I still wouldn't say that I'm confident in him being our starting right tackle going into this season. But the Andrew Wiley that you remember from the first half of of last season, and then after a while you just kind of tuned them out and just kind of just bunched the whole offensive line as like a bad unit together. Andrew Wiley improved going into the second half of last year. He wasn't great. I'm not even necessarily sure I would argue he was good, but he definitely wasn't terrible. So I wanted to go ahead and put that out there now. But most underrated player is insane. I still disagree mightily with that. But let's dive into what their reasoning was. They said Wiley came over from Kansas City with offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy to play right tackle for the Commanders. Although he gave up a sack in each of his first 4 games with Washington. Oh yeah, we remember that vividly. Wiley got better as the season went on and eventually earned a 69.2 Pro Football Focus overall grade, a career high mark for him on his way to ranking 16th among right tackles. So basically their logic is, if you take out the first half of the season, maybe he's a top 10 right tackle in the NFL. You got to show me, man. I'm not putting any belief in that until I see it. Again, he did look better the second half of last season, but whoo, most underrated player is, wow, I don't care. Man, that's just insane to me. Now moving on. The Pro Football Focus also named their breakout candidate for the Washington Commanders. This one they selected Jahan Dotson. They said the 2024 season feels like the make or break one for Dotson in Washington. And with the departure of Curtis Samuel and no true tight end one, even though I would argue we have a lot of really good tight ends, but it is what it is, he should be utilized better by new offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. And I feel like that's more of like a by default thing. I'm not even sure if that's necessarily a compliment to Cliff Kingsbury or not, because I just feel like you can't be used worse than how Eric Bieniemy used them last year. I feel like no matter who we would have hired as offensive coordinator, even if they hired one of us, one of y'all watching this video with me, I feel like we could have utilized Jahan Dotson better than he was utilized last year. I feel like last year was rock bottom for him as far as like making catches when we expected him to, and the way that Eric Bieniemy was using them and things like that. So I just feel like at the end of the day, Cliff Kingsbury by default will use them better. We'll see how much better it is though, and that's when we'll see how good Cliff Kingsbury is or not. And then also, Pro Football Focus named a bounce back candidate for 2024. They named Deron Payne for that one, and I feel like honestly Jahan Dotson would fit better as that title, but it is what it is. And so they said Payne has established himself as one of the more solid interior defenders across the NFL, but his past season wasn't his finest. He tallied 14 fewer pressures despite having 32 additional opportunities to rush the passer. Again, he was tired, man. I'm telling you, that got him and Jonathan Allen having to play 80% or more snaps every game just didn't even make sense, man. That's not how defensive line is supposed to work. You're supposed to be rotated in and out way more often than that. You're supposed to be way less fatigued. You're supposed to be more fresh, more explosive. So he's going to be more efficient now that we brought in Jazon Newton. Which, speaking of him, Pro Football Focus said with Washington's drafting of Illinois defensive lineman Johnny Newton in the second round, new head coach Dan Quinn could turn to more of a rotation along the Commanders' defensive line, which might reduce Payne's pressure numbers even further. Then again, as Payne enters the second year of his $90 million contract extension, he's unlikely to go anywhere. A more motivated Payne, who could also happen to clean up his tackling, could return to being an amazing pass rusher in 2024. I, again, would argue even though he may play less snaps, he's going to be far more efficient. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually puts up more pressures because of it. At the very least, more sacks. Now, moving on, now we have some interesting rankings for Jayden Daniels. This gets crazy. So going back to Pro Football Focus just real quick, and we're going to leave them pretty soon. They have Jayden Daniels ranked as the 27th starting quarterback in the NFL going into the 2024 season. But sticking with Pro Football Focus, fantasy football wise, they have him ranked 12th. That's really interesting. I mean, that is a huge jump from 27th best quarterback to 12th fantasy quarterback is a big leap there. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what that in between is. Does he feel like his offense is going to be very efficient and explosive? Is that a lot of trust in Cliff Kingsbury? Is that a lot of trust in Jayden Daniels' legs? Is that a lot of trust in his receivers, his offense as a whole, his tight end group and things like that? What is this jump from 27th best quarterback to 12th best fantasy quarterback? I mean, that's a really phenomenal jump. I'll take it though. And even Matthew Berry himself, Mr. Fantasy Football himself, has Jayden Daniels ranked as his 13th quarterback in his fantasy quarterback rankings. So this is not like a foreign thing. This just seems to be kind of the general consensus. Jayden Daniels will be a top 15 fantasy quarterback this year already. Remember, Peyton Manning said a couple of weeks ago, I did a video breaking that down. He said he's drafting Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin onto his fantasy team as soon as he possibly can. Like, there's just a lot of hype for Jayden Daniels as a fantasy quarterback. It has to be his legs, but it can't just be him. It can't just be him. There has to be the offense that's around him, the offensive coordinator, the weapons. Maybe they have more faith in our offensive line than even us Commanders fans and analysts do. I don't know where that is, but I'm happy. I know one thing about it. I'm happy to see that. And if you even go back to Pro Football Focus real quick, they have tiers for their fantasy quarterback rankings as well. Like tier 1 is Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Tier 2, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Tier 3, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. And then tier 4 has Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, and our Jayden Daniels. Then below Jayden Daniels, you have tier 5. Caleb Williams, drafted number 1 overall, the pick before Jayden Daniels, with this elite receiving core that he already has with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. I still don't even exactly know. I guess Keenan Allen is the third option, how good that receiving core is. But they still have Caleb Williams ranked below Jayden Daniels on the fantasy quarterback rankings there. So Kirk Cousins also in tier 5 with Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jared Goff. And then you have my Georgia dog Matthew Stafford down there tier 6 with Aaron Rodgers, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, Geno Smith, and Bryce Young. And then it just keeps going further and further down. I mean, just some notable names that we would probably care about, like Daniel Jones is in tier 7, just to let you know, just to give you that heads up. Sam Darnold's tier 8, and he'll probably start. I'm only mentioning him because they have JJ McCarthy higher than him, so I'm assuming that they think that either JJ McCarthy will start week 1 or he will eventually replace Sam Darnold as the starter sooner rather than later. And then also, I don't know how it happened, but Chris Sims, for some reason in this top 40 quarterback countdown going into this season, he has Michael Penix over Jayden Daniels, which is really weird for him. Really weird. Because when you look at, well, first of all, he's doing like a countdown starting from 40 all the way up. And out of 40 quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels being ranked 28 as a rookie is pretty nice. I mean, he hasn't ranked over Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy, but somehow behind Will Levis and Michael Penix, which is really interesting. So again, but this is weird though, because when you look at his top 5 draft quarterback prospects before the draft, he had Caleb Williams tier 1 by himself, Jayden Daniels tier 2 by himself. And then he had tier 3 with Bo Nix 3rd, Michael Penix 4th, and JJ McCarthy 5th. And then of course, Drake May tier 4 6th. And I'm just like, what changed? Like, why is Michael Penix ahead of Jayden Daniels now? Michael Penix is not even probably going to start for the Falcons within like the next couple of years. So I'm just trying to figure out why he put Michael Penix ahead of Jayden Daniels in his 2024 quarterback rankings, but had Jayden Daniels ahead of Michael Penix in his 2024 draft quarterback rankings. So I don't know. That was weird. And then also, before we leave Jayden Daniels alone, his LSU teammate and now rival wide receiver and Malik Neighbors that plays for the Giants was asked about his former teammate. He said, quote, "I'll beat him 2 times a year every time we play him," unquote, with the utmost confidence, even though he doesn't even seem to like his quarterback. I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, but immediately after he was drafted, they asked him about Daniel Jones, and instead of just at least lie. Just say, I mean, he's strong arm, whatever. I can't wait to meet him and things like that. His answer was something to the extent of, "I got to see it to give you an answer." Like, bro, just at least lie. Just act like you like the guy. Golly. And then he's just been, his answers about the Giants have just been so, like, not what you would expect or what you'd hope as a Giants fan. They asked him about the jerseys. He said they didn't look good, but he'll find a way to swag it out regardless or something like that. Like, he just, I don't know. He just doesn't seem to be pretty happy about the Giants, but he's going to talk his trash, though, so I ain't mad at it. And, of course, you remember him and Jayden Daniels had that $10,000 bet, I believe it was, for who was going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Then the NFL heard about that and then, like, stomped on it and made sure they reviewed the gambling policies and things like that. But I'm pretty sure if I'm them, they probably still have that whole situation going on behind the scenes. That $10,000 bet is still probably in place, because how would the NFL be able to prove that they don't or that they do? So either way, now moving on, an NFL writer urged the NFC North, one NFC North team, to call the Commanders about Jonathan Allen, especially after we went and drafted Johnny Newton 36th overall. Isaac Zuniga from Last Word on Sports tabbed the Chicago Bears as a potential trade destination for Jonathan Allen in the unlikely event that Washington is open to offers. We saw a rumor that apparently the Commanders may have been thinking about trading him to the Miami Dolphins. Now you have the Chicago Bears potentially as a landing spot. No. You already took Montez Sweat from us. You're done. You're not getting Jonathan Allen. But most importantly, the reason I'm not going to even dive into this article, because that would be like a whole nother 10 minutes worth of video. It's a really long article breaking down exactly why it makes sense, how it could make sense, all of the logistics behind it and things like that. But Jonathan Allen went to Instagram himself and let us know he's ready to go. There were rumors, but then he basically confirmed by saying that he wants to stay, when he said recently, like in an OTA's press conference, something like that, that basically, yeah, I was thinking about potentially leaving. Like he said something to the extent of, I did not want to be a part of another rebuild. I want to win now. I'm a seasoned veteran now. I'm tired of being a part of rebuild after rebuild after rebuild and things like that. But then he said he spoke to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, and now he's ready to buy into this vision. And he feels like this is not your typical rebuild. This may be a quicker turnaround than most rebuilds, is basically his point. And that he's excited. He's ready to go. He even put out a Instagram post saying, let's do this thing, with a pic of himself in it. So he seems to be locked in, ready to go. Jonathan Allen is fully on board with everything that we have going on here, and I'm excited about that. Let's get it. No more trade rumors. Leave that in the past. We're ready to move on. Let's get it, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm going to be super busy, but I'm doing everything that I can to try to at least make sure I get like one video out a day. So make sure y'all just stay patient with me, and then we're going to be back to like 2-3 videos a day after this weekend. So make sure you just stay tuned. Really excited. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like, and of course, let me know in the comment. That's the most important part. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything. That's what I care about the most. How do you feel about the hiring of a new elite scout, potentially, especially in the Southeast region, and how important that is? Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of those points. Let me know how you feel about Washington, D.C. potentially hosting a draft as soon as 2027. I had to pull up to that one, man. I can't even lie. I'm gonna have to. Also, let me know how you feel about the Pro Football Focus rankings for our most underrated player, our breakout candidate, and comeback player as well. Let me know how you feel about Jayden Daniels' ranks and how far apart his quarterback rank is compared to his fantasy quarterback ranking. Let me know how you feel about Jonathan Allen saying that he wants to be here no matter what. He's ready to go. Let me know how you feel about all of that and more. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible, since I will not even be home. So like, anytime I catch a break, I'm gonna try to do that as much as I can. Make sure y'all stay tuned. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.